January 3rd, 2023. The cold settled in before dawn. Outside the walls of the Eastern Reception, Diagnostic and Correctional Center in Bonne Terre, Missouri, the air was still. Inside, it was quieter than usual, quiet in a way that seemed unnatural. In Cell 2, Housing Unit 5, Amber Mclaughlin lay awake. Inmate number 1, a thin blanket covered her, but nothing could dull the weight that pressed in from all sides. The fluorescent lights buzzed faintly above, casting a sterile glow. Every hour from here on had a name. Through reinforced glass and steel doors, staff moved slowly, their footsteps muffled against concrete floors. No words, just glances. Amber stared at the ceiling. She knew what the next 24 hours held.
After 6, Amber Mclaughlin became the first transgender person in the country to die by lethal injection.
Around her, time thickened. The countdown had begun. 1:15 a.m., January 3rd, 2023. In the dim light of her cell, Amber Mclaughlin sat upright now, motionless. Her breathing steady but shallow. Born Scott A. Mclaughlin. In January of 1973, her story had long since escaped the bounds of court transcripts and prison records. The crime that put her here, committed 2 decades earlier, still cast a long shadow. On November 20th, 2003, she had waited in silence outside Beverly Gunther's workplace. Beverly, 45, had just begun reclaiming her life. New car, new house, freedom. But that night she never came home. The attack was swift, violent. Beverly was raped, stabbed, and left in an abandoned location in St. Louis. A restraining order had been filed weeks earlier. It changed nothing. At trial in 2006, a jury convicted Mclaughlin of rape, murder, and armed criminal action. But they couldn't agree on a sentence. So, Judge Stephen Goldman decided. Death. A rare override, allowed only in Missouri and Indiana. Years later, behind prison walls, Mclaughlin transitioned. But her legal name never changed. And now, history was watching. January 3rd, 2023. A pale ribbon of light slipped through the high, narrow windows of the Eastern Reception, Diagnostic and Correctional Center. Amber Mclaughlin stood at the edge of her cell, unmoving, as morning unfolded in hushed tones. The night before, she had clung to a fragile hope. "It's not official yet," she'd told her friend, during what would be their final visit. The crime that put her here, committed 2 decades earlier, the legal machinery rolled forward. Mclaughlin's attorneys had pleaded her case: trauma, intellectual disability, childhood abuse. A jury had once been unable to choose death, but now it was. The governor had spoken. Governor Mike Parson's office released the statement. Clemency denied. Justice, he said, would be delivered. Breakfast arrived like clockwork.
I think I had accepted that today would be the end and last day, and she kept bringing me hope, and it's like, well, it's not official yet, and we're still gonna see what happens, and maybe the governor will release a decision.
Metal trays sliding across concrete, guards exchanging brief nods. The air hung heavier than usual. Finality seeped into every routine. But the courts had spoken. In 2021, the 8th Circuit had restored the sentence.
Just before 7 o'clock,
activists traveled all over the state protesting the scheduled execution of Amber Mclaughlin.
Outside, 51 protesters gathered under a gray sky. Signs raised, voices steady. Inside, Amber sat quietly. The clock no longer ticked forward. It pressed down. 1:42 p.m., January 3rd, 2023. The visitation room was quiet. No phones, no glass, no restraints, just chairs, a table, and the knowledge that time was running short. Amber Mclaughlin sat across from her spiritual advisor, Lauren Bennett. For hours, Bennett stayed by her side. Soft words, steady presence. Amber listened more than she spoke. Her legal team followed. Public Defender Larry Comp entered solemnly. No more motions to file, no more calls to make. Only final confirmations, last wishes, final statements. He spoke gently, though his disappointment was unmistakable. Amber nodded often, listened, sometimes closed her eyes. Prison staff moved in and out of view, precise and silent, their roles rehearsed, yet never routine. These were the last human contacts of her life. Inside her cell, later that afternoon, Amber sat alone. The light had changed, warmer now, but shallow. She had written her final words earlier. "I am sorry for what I did. I am a loving and caring person." Remorse lay heavy, but so did her past. Abuse, neglect, diagnosed disabilities, multiple suicide attempts. Even last night she had whispered, "You still gonna see what happens?" Now she knew. 3:08 p.m., January 3rd, 2023. A tray arrived at her cell door. Cheeseburger, French fries, a strawberry milkshake, Peanut M and Ms. Amber Mclaughlin's final meal. She ate slowly, methodically. It wasn't much, but it was hers. One last decision in a day shaped entirely by others. Afterward, she was allowed a shower. Fresh, prison-issued clothing laid out. No changes, standard male unit attire. She had not legally changed her name. Her belongings were cataloged, folded, tagged, stripped of meaning in the face of the inevitable. Each step marked the narrowing path. The state, exact in its procedures, moved forward without pause. The transfer began. 2 guards flanked her, guiding her from the holding cell. The corridor was quiet. Polished floors reflected overhead lights. Doors opened in sequence. The death chamber stood ready, its form unmistakable. Through glass, the gurney waited beneath white linen. Leather straps rested beneath the folds, prepared. Amber's footsteps were steady, the final walk. She entered the small cinder block room. Nothing more to say, nothing more to choose. Only what remained. 6:17 p.m., January 3rd, 2023. The final room was small, white, and silent, a cinder block chamber built for one purpose. At its center, the gurney, cold, steel-framed, with wide leather straps. Amber Mclaughlin was led in, steady under escort. She lay down without resistance. The straps were fastened across her arms, chest, and legs. Measured, firm, precise. Behind the observation window, witnesses took their positions. Among them, Al Wadapole, Beverly Gwenther's younger brother. Members of the press, state officials, 2 of Amber's chosen witnesses. Her spiritual advisor, Lauren Bennett, stood nearest, never leaving her side. 6:34 p.m. The room held its breath as the final statement was read aloud. "I am sorry for what I did. I am a loving and caring person." Signed under her birth name, Scott A. Mclaughlin. The injection began. Pentobarbital entered her system. Lauren Bennett leaned close, speaking, then singing softly. Amber's breathing grew louder, then slower, a few sharp exhales. Then stillness. 6:51 p.m. The warden stepped forward. Time of death, 6:51 p.m. Outside, protesters fell quiet. Inside, it was done.